Hello. Today, I've been thinking about how much I value growth and possibility. I really do think that we need something to drive us out of bed and into life every day. And the possibility of becoming more or finding out what's around the bend, that's a wonderful source of drive for me. And so, yeah, I definitely value these. But today, I'm actually contemplating the flip side of that a bit more and realizing that we cannot create that we don't destroy. We can't bring in what's new that we don't displace what's current or old. And there's a certain amount of bittersweetness to this that I forget about because I like to focus on where I'm headed and what steps I need to take to get there and why I'm driving toward that. And I think that's a good default approach, but I also think it's necessary to take time and appreciate that as we grow, we cease to be who we've been. We have to shed who we've been and grieve that and find a way to take something from it that continues to be a part of who we are, but that we no longer identify with that incarnation of who we've been. And this happens in so many ways, whatever we do, in relationships and our jobs and where we live in terms of what music we're into. Sometimes that changes over time. Our tastes in food, our taste in company, these things will change over time. And that means that those things that defined who we were and how we lived and what we valued fall out of relevance and practice. And that's what allows for the new things to arise in its place. And I know this is intellectually very obvious, but I guess I was struck by it today. I guess I'm dealing with some grief right now, and I'm trying to honor the changing of the guard in so many ways. There's a number of areas in my life where things are taking meaningful turns and sort of surpassing themselves. And this is something I've been thinking about bringing up, which is excellence. We talk about, I want to be excellent, I want to excel, excellence is a value, and that's cool, but that means you're always having to surpass what is, whatever it is. And so we generate a certain amount of grief, or at least the necessity for it. We don't necessarily acknowledge it, address it, honor it, release it, right? But we do. We generate grief in our pursuit of possibility. And it helps me understand a little more about a certain perspective on karma, where the idea is that karma is our doing. And I forget what practice this is, but there are people who try to do as little as possible, to make as little impact, to generate as little karma as possible, because even when we're doing what we believe is good and virtuous and righteous and beneficial and all these things that, yeah, they are, but also nothing comes without a cost. And so to be excellent, you have to also be excellent at grieving things and releasing things and making space for that which you are trying to somehow bring about through your striving, ultimately. And I'm all about striving. This is not to say we shouldn't. It's to say we should approach that in a more prepared way, because part of what's helping me to reconcile these things that are giving me a little inner conflict, a little pain, is knowing that this is part of the process, that I can't do my part to bring things forth, that I don't also do my part to lay things to rest. And I think some of the ambient anxiety we experience as humans, it comes from not having a practice for these things. And it's almost like an emotional digestive system that needs care, that needs support, and we understand we need to keep a good microbiome in our guts. We understand ever more how that affects immunity and mental health, and all these other things you wouldn't necessarily guess. But yeah, it's almost necessary we recognize that the emotional system has a need of a good environment to run in, and it needs to be able to move things through efficiently while extracting what's nourishing and rejecting what is not useful or possibly harmful to the system. And it strikes me that we don't really have any kind of collective practice for this. We don't even do grief in general well. We just, in the Western world, we've really lost meaningful processes for handling and transcending grief, ultimately. Pardon. So, yeah, I'm being struck by the fact that you can't have one without the other. The front goes with the back, and the front is growth and possibility and moving forward, because I think being in forward motion is what being alive is about. That we're wound up, we're like wind up toys, and we're released, and it's for us to just go forward, and in that it's almost like we generate our own life force in that movement. We are our own generators ultimately, and I think that being deep in life is the point of life. We're here to have earthly experiences, and some of those experiences are going to be elation at great victory and achievement and breakthroughs and resolutions and all these things we work toward. But some of that is also sorrow and recognition and hopefully the awe that comes with that, and the humility of how small we are when you think about what goes on just outside our atmosphere. Like, we're just spinning around in empty space with all these inconceivably large things happening at all times all around us. And we're completely unaware of it, you know? But we're here, and we are just made to focus on what is here. That's how our whole system is organized, to prioritize what's going on in my environment, what's going on within me, what's going on between me and another person. This is what our whole system does, and that says to me that being in it and moving forward and always striving to bring and extract the most from everything. And I don't mean in a transactional way. I mean in terms of bringing attention, energy, passion, ideas, whatever we can contribute to something, and also being in a way that we're receptive and we can really soak up what it is and just be able to add that to everything else we can build. And it's that flow that I think propels life. That's that other life force that's not just your pulse, it's not just your vitals, it's that thing beyond that spirit, that ineffable thing that, like the wind, ultimately stirs everything. And that's a good example of wind, you know. I remember hearing a story about a guy who said he could grow his own crops, he didn't need God. And God was like, okay, go ahead. And the guy got everything right. He was like, the right amount of water, the right amount of sun, the soil was perfect, everything was spaced out right. And he's like, yeah, it's going to be a great crop. It's going to be the best crop. See, I don't need God to do this for me. I can do this myself. And so everything's growing, and it's wonderful, and it's time for the product to really grow. And let's say it's corn, ready. It's checking to see if the ears of corn are ready. And there's nothing. It's like, it's shriveled, it's unusable. And he's like, what, why? What didn't I get? God was like, you forgot the wind. It needs to be challenged by the wind to grow strong and straight and really bear fruit. And of course, the metaphor is that the wind is the forces that we have to walk headlong into, you know, as life presents us challenges, and we want to buckle to the pain and the despair and the cozy little blanket that is feeling bad for ourselves, and we just kind of want to wrap up in that and quit. But we need to have something to push against, so we can get up and do it again, so we can have this experience, so we don't end up living bundled away from life. And I think, why does that matter? Okay, because when you talk to people who've been around the dying, that's a universal thing that people say, it got by so fast. There were so many things. I thought there was more time. Like, how did but wait, I can't. There's this surprise, this like recognition that like all those days of just sitting, taking comfort really cost you actual life. And I love comfort. I'm all about coziness. I'm all for the sensual world, but everything in balance, everything in moderation. And you can't even get real comfort there if you're just hiding from the problems of the world. You ultimately are just hiding from every good thing, and there's no comfort in hiding from every good thing. But every good thing comes with some pain. It's the front and it's the back. And I guess the pain of the grief I feel now is the product of what I have committed my heart and my passion to, and haven't always been successful in. But to be able to bring something into this world that I love and honor and feel a sense of rightness with, it's that I gave myself to the right things, and even though I have to release what's been to allow what's coming, I know I left it all on the field, and I can respect that. As much as I want to go back and redo things, there's no going back. There are no do-overs. That's another thing we forget. We say, oh, life's short. Well, it's also goes in one direction, so we have to think about what we're leaving in our wake ultimately. And I think that if we live in a way that we can feel good about what we leave in our wake, and we have done our best to bring something into this world, and it's time to release it and make peace with the closing of a chapter. But it's not the end of the story. Another chapter begins, and there is so much adventure and wonder and possibility, and we can grow so much into the next chapter that who doesn't want more, right? We're driven to go forward, to want more, to use our senses and to be in this world. And I think these are subtle things we don't really have language for. It's not, I don't know where we have it that I could just say, the thing with the thing, and people go, yeah, the thing. It's like this subtle, overlooked thing that I think is so incredibly influential and impactful, and yet we don't even really see it. It's like we don't even know the shape of it. It's just out of our view somehow. And I think being able to set goals to go forward and to strive for something, we should also understand we are taking on the responsibility of doing this work and moving things along through the system, that we keep what's nourishing and we release the rest, and we understand it as part of the process. Sometimes just being reminded, like, this is what you're doing, this is where you're up to, this is what you're here for. You go, oh, but it sucks. Can I not like that it sucks? Yeah, you can dislike it all day, but the more energy you put into that, the less you have for all the other things. I just finished saying how much I value this. So when I'm talking to myself, I'm like, what do you care more? I'm like, no, I care more about being able to go forward and create what's next, and not get caught on the hooks of what's past, because there's no going back to the past. All we can do is remember it and imagine things and get emotional, right? These are the things we do. It's not a tangible thing. It's not a thing we can impact. And I think that in getting real about that, really, like, because there's some part of us that wants to make believe and be like, that's okay, because when I get my time machine, I'll go back and I'll fix that. Like, somewhere I think in the back of a lot of people's minds, there's this idea of like, yeah, but I can go back and fix. And it sounds irrational, because it is irrational. It's deep. It's like this deep subconscious thing of like, yeah, you really can't go back. Like, thinking about what you would have said or how you could have done it differently, or what if you just said sorry or made that phone call, or you can't do anything about that. You're losing right now, and that's one more regret you can put on your pile. It becomes like a fetish. Having regrets is like, it's kind of a fetish, because you're giving power to something that has no power. You're giving undue significance to it. Our past experiences, our memories have significance, certainly, but it's imbuing it with something more that isn't appropriate for that. And I fall prone to this. I'm not above it, but I have to remind myself and say, yeah, this is the part I can't control. This is the part I have to know better about, and like leave that over here so I can be in this place now, in this timeline, focus forward to keep that life force going, because it's nice to be. I have to keep my life force going by eating something, pardon me. Yeah, so it's about a hunger for life ultimately, and I think that we not only create more or get more or become more, but we just experience such a finer quality of life, and it allows us to. Sanity is being in accord with reality, and if you're real about it, that you can kind of move through it. It doesn't feel as crazy. You're like, yeah, I knew this was part of the process. I knew there was going to be pain on the other side of this. There's nothing I can love or pour myself into that certain changes or losses aren't gonna cause pain. But I also have to remember those changes, those losses make way for the growth and possibility I do value. So it's about taking a broader view of it. Again, zoom out. I'm still zooming out from my list of 20 things that got me through 22, and then I didn't do one for last year. I probably should circle back for that and do a review. But yeah, zooming out. Always trying to shift perspective and see it from, the level of, I don't know, black holes and nebulas and planets that are many times the size of our own, and then come back and say, oh, okay, but this is just a very small blip on the screen of all of existence. This isn't everything. This is barely anything, but it's my barely anything, and I get to choose what I do with that. This little bit of time I've been given, one of the only things that's really mine is this experience moment to moment, and I have to be able to sit and be sad and ugly cry and think and say stupid things to myself, but then I need to recognize that work is done, set it down, get up, and keep moving. And in doing that, I feel that I'm able to keep my own life force very strong and my own connection to life and experience very vibrant. And I've lived in ways that I felt very disconnected from that, and just going on that contrast, I would say that I would much rather be on the light side. So, all right, here's to keeping our light alive even through the dark times, and grieving what's past with an eye to what's ahead. And I'll look forward to seeing what's ahead for the next one, and I appreciate you coming along. Thank you so much. Okay, take care.